The moment she starts talking in a forum like this, it's just all whatever mystique there was that they built around her, it just evaporates immediately.
She doesn't have a lot of skill, but she definitely is extremely strong at one thing, and that is stalling for time.
You notice that?
It's like the verbal equivalent of trying to fill up the word count on a term paper. It's remarkable.
This is why you find all these clips circulating online of the things she said 4, 5, 6 years ago, because that's the only way to find out what she actually believes about anything. That's the 4 or 5 years ago was the last time she ever answered a question.
Yes.
Really. And so that's how far back you have to go to get an actual answer to what you really believe. And then you know, as always, you compare it to Trump, who, whatever else you say about him, like he
yeah, whether you like it or not, he's going to tell you.
He's going to tell you. And he's going to ask him any question, and he'll give you an answer.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I am Josh Holmes, along with Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook. There's an empty seat at the end for Comfortably Smug, who's fashionably late for our recording today. More on that later. You may have noticed we brought a big movie star in here today.
Where is he?
Matt Walsh. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. This is my first time I've been in a room where I'm the overdressed one. So it's an interesting experience for me.
I imagine. Well, I mean, look, this is kind of the way we roll. But yeah, I mean, look, you've got appearances to keep up these days.
Well, because I'm going to talk to some classier people after you.
Yeah,
guys.
okay,
That's why I got to dress like this.
Yeah, you got to do famous guy stuff. We're just a bunch of campaign hacks. So, like, you know, we're in the casual gear most of the time.
Listen, you got a big movie out. We're going to talk about that in great detail. But we're big fans. I mean, we've watched a lot of your work. This one seems like it's in a different place, though.
It is. It's a different world. It's a different experience when you try to put it in theaters. You know, it's a different. It's a whole new world for us.
We're talking about Am I Racist?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that.
Out in theaters, 1,500 screens across this great country, and probably growing, I would imagine.
Yeah. We our first weekend, a little bit under 1,500 actually, and then we are expanding. So they gave us more screens for the second weekend, which is good.
Well, it turns out when people go to see things and they get box office revenue, there is some market capitalism involved in some of these outfits after all.
And you get a little bit of word of mouth. I mean, we're very much the little engine that could with our little movie here, and we don't have the tens of millions of dollars in marketing budget that these other films do. And we don't have all the screens that they do. So I'm just laying out all my excuses.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have that, but you do have you in a wig. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be
it's going to be a banger. We're going to talk about all of that. But off the top, look, we'd be remiss here on the Ruthless Variety Program if we didn't take note of what's happening around the country. And you got two presidential candidates that are crisscrossing this country, doing all kinds of things. And it turns out Kamala Harris went to the National Association of Black Journalists. This, of course, was the interview or symposium that Donald Trump did a month and a half ago, and she sort of declined.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm proud of her. She's finally talking to journalists.
Yeah, well,
she worked up the courage.
But we have some.
I wouldn't go so far as to call them journalists, but they're
yeah, right.
people that pose as journalists. Yeah.
There was not a lot of curious questions, so much as points that they wanted to get across. But we're going to play a couple clips nevertheless and have you react to some of them. If you wouldn't mind playing clip 1, please, Spaghetts.
Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
So when we came into, well, first of all, let me just say it is good to be with the National Association of Black Journalists, and I thank you for the work you do and that your members do every day. It is very important that we ensure that this organization and your members always have the resources and the platforms to deliver the voices that must be heard. So I thank you for hosting me today. 4 years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Okay. All right. So a couple things stand out. This, of course, was the first debate question that she was given on ABC in what will probably be the only debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And she didn't answer. At that point, I grew up in a middle-class family,
right,
which is what she did. But she's going to, a very, very sympathetic audience here and still cannot answer this question. It is a pretty simple question, is it not, Matt?
You would think it is, but she has a way of. By the time she got to sort of answering it, I had already forgotten what the question was. Right. Because she just what was the question? She just has this way of lulling you to sleep. Basically, it's like she's totally devoid of anything resembling charisma or personality or anything, which is why I think. Look, conservatives complained that Kamala Harris was not doing interviews and she wasn't out answering questions. And morally and ethically, she should be. But strategically, if I was running her campaign, I would say absolutely not. I don't care what those people say on their damn podcasts. You are doing rallies only. That's the only time anyone's ever going to see you until you're in the White House. Because the moment she starts talking in a forum like this, it's just whatever mystique there was that they built around her, it just evaporates immediately.
She doesn't have a lot of skill, but she definitely is extremely strong at one thing, and that is stalling for time.
You notice that?
It's like the verbal equivalent of trying to fill up the word count on a term paper. It's remarkable.
It's like the old blue books in college where you just kind of write.
Where do I start? Well, I was a young man.
I also love how they figured out a way to set. The question is whether or not 4 years ago you're better off now than you were 4 years ago, and her only response of any sort of resemblance of substance is, well, it was so bad.
Right.
You forget how bad it actually was.
And of course, it's an unfair question because really the question is, are you better off than you were 5 years ago? Because right in the middle of COVID, they shut everything down and everyone lost their jobs and everything. It's you're probably better off than that moment when they shut down society. But the question is, before that, that really is the question.
Well, and also what she doesn't say is she supported all of that. She loved the shutdowns. Her whole party loved the shutdowns. They wanted to scare every American to not vote for Donald Trump. So she's like, oh, all these jobs went away. And it's certainly I supported all the reasons why those jobs went away, but that's beside the point.
The worst attack on our democracy since Civil War. That's a hell of a quote.
Hell of a quote.
Spaghetti, can we clue up clip 2, please?
Or someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
But you're asking about...
I'm asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns aren't purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes,
they do.
But in many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not, under existing law in the past, required to register their sales.
We pulled this one for several reasons. The first of which is she is very clear on the record. She had mandatory buybacks of every weapon in America. She supported any sort of gun confiscation policy that you can come up with. And then in the debate, she comes up and she's like, well, I'm a gun owner, a proud gun owner. And now, apparently, within one clip, she is saying that background checks they apply to the handgun. Well, they don't apply to this handgun. Oh, by the way, I protested it when it started going south on her.
Yeah.
It's like three sides of a two-sided issue in one 15-second clip.
Yeah, this is why you find all these clips circulating online of the things she said 4, 5, 6 years ago, because that's the only way to find out what she actually believes about anything. That's the 4 or 5 years ago was the last time she ever answered a question.
Yes.
Really. And so that's how far back you have to go to get an actual answer to what you really believe. And then, you know, as always, you compare it to Trump, who, whatever else you say about him, like he
yeah, whether you like it or not, he's going to tell you.
He's going to tell you. And he's going to ask him any question, and he'll give you an answer.
Right.
And so the contrast is always quite striking.
It's totally striking.
I'll just say the one clip we don't have in our lineup, and I'm sure you guys saw it, where she just drones on and on nonsensically. And it was actually perfect. It's way too long for us to play here, but it's actually perfect. Kamala, who is basically, everybody listening to this show has worked for someone in their life where they're like, why is this person in charge of me? And you sit in a meeting and the person slows their cadence and they try to speak authoritatively. And everybody's like, can we just get this meeting over? And I think it's one of the things that turns people off about her, because they know somebody like that in their own life.
Yeah.
It's like corporate speak that's worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, there's not like no seeming point to any of it other than, like you said, to fill.
And I like the way you notice how she always nods her head while she's talking?
Yeah, right.
Like it's almost like the she's trying to convince you that what she's saying makes a lot of sense. Just by, you know, she's giving you these like body cues. Doesn't work.
It doesn't. Let's go to the next clip 3, and I believe this is a pretty good segue in many ways too. Spaghettis?
Would you, as president, take executive action to create this commission, or do you believe that it should happen in Congress?
Talking about reparations.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost, and she was a friend and a real champion for so many issues. So I feel compelled to say that about her. On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history, in spite of the fact that some people are trying to erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history.
But do you have a position on whether that should happen, this commission should happen through executive order or via Congress?
I think Congress ultimately will have the ability to do this work. I'm not discounting the importance of any executive action, but ultimately Congress.
I mean, so you're noticing a pattern here.
Yeah, and she supports reparations, first of all. She's been clear about that in the past.
Did an interview with the Breakfast Club 4 years ago where she went on and spoke definitively about her support for reparations.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Again, you have to go back 4 or 5 years to get the actual answer to the question. Also, I just have to say, she goes on this whole thing, like they always do, the Democrats, about, we got to teach our history, and there's people that don't want kids to hear about this aspect of our history. Who the hell is saying that? Who is saying that we have to deny that slavery happens, that we don't want to teach it in school? The issue with slavery, it's like if you go up to any kid in school right now and you ask them facts about American history, they could probably give you 3 facts, and slavery is 2 of them. Like, it's not only do we already talk about it, it's like the only thing that we talk about, that we teach kids historically about American history. And so they create this total fantasy world where people are trying to prevent the conversation around this topic. If anything, what I would like to, let's talk about slavery, but my thing is, let's talk more about it and expand the conversation so that we're discussing slavery in America, which was a terrible thing that happened. But it could be interesting to understand it in the context of the global institution of slavery, which was an institution for thousands of years, before it even occurred to anyone that there's anything wrong with it. It was like it existed everywhere for thousands of years. So that's what I would like to see. That's the kind of instruction there should be about.
Well, it sounds like learning, Matt.
Yeah.
That's not.
You can't do that.
We can't. There's no place for that.
Especially not in schools.
Not in a school. Not in a school of any kind of higher education. We thought that was a perfect clip to sort of segue because in your incredible movie, Am I a Racist? At one point, and we don't have a clip because you guys are in theaters and we can't play the specific clip, but upon viewing it, you actually got someone to pay reparations.
We did.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I guess I've been trying not to talk about spoilers, but
Can we put graphic there? Here's the still of the moment.
Yeah, we might as well just talk about it because it's already all over the internet. So we talked to well, the movie is my journey into anti-racism and DEI. I go on a journey of self-discovery to confront my own whiteness and my own internalized racism and all that stuff. It was a very serious, very, very emotional journey for me. I even break down in tears multiple times throughout the journey. But we knew that at the end of this, we needed to talk to the queen of anti-racism, who is Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility. And so towards the end of into the third act, as we say in the film business,
Yeah, that's right.
Us movie stars, as we put it.
That's right.
Not to give us industry terms that you might not know. Anyway, as we get into that, we talked to Robin DiAngelo, and I knew that we wanted. Obviously, I asked her some questions, but I knew that we didn't want to just interview and ask her. Like, we wanted to walk her through some exercises.
You want to bring this to life,
right? Because at this point, I'm a DI consultant. I'm certified. I got my license. I still have my license. I don't have it on me, but I have it. And so because it opens a lot of doors, we found. So what I wanted to do was this. She's the ultimate. So am I in a position now where I can teach her? Can this be the student becomes a teacher moment where I can kind of one up her? And that's kind of what we did with the scene. And by the end of it, after we've walked through a couple of exercises, I called in my black producer, Ben, and I said, this would be a perfect opportunity for us to put words into action and pay reparations right now. I paid reparations to him. I did take my reparations back after the cameras. Because it was like $60. I'm like, dude, I'm not. That's just
Film hasn't succeeded yet.
Right. So it took a little convincing, but then she went and grabbed $30 from her wallet and paid reparations.
A half match of your reparations.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you got to watch the scene, but the fact that she didn't want to do it at first.
Yeah, it tells you everything.
But could be convinced, right? Because we didn't know how it would go. I thought there's a good chance she just won't do it at all. And if she didn't do it, then that ruins the scene for us. We probably can't even use it. She would have saved herself from being in this movie,
right?
If she had just stuck to her guns and not paid reparations.
But it tells you how much of this DEI stuff is really just people crumbling under the social pressure of self-flagellation.
And theatrics to...
Yeah. Oh, I'm a horrible person,
Yeah.
But my question to you, because this is sort of like, I don't know if this is, it's sort of like a Borat-style mockumentary of it. Like you become this DEI consultant. And I'm just like wondering, as somebody who's like, I don't think you're professionally trained as an actor. Like, how do you keep a straight face? Like, how did you wear that wig and keep a straight face and just get into character on this?
Yeah, the wig took some getting used to. The wig, it was a little bit embarrassing the first few times, but still embarrassing.
Do you just have to like dissociate? Like, how do you sit there across from these people and not just like crack up?
Well, because the answer is that for most of those situations, it's funny in the movie, but in real life, you got to keep in mind these are much longer conversations in real life. Obviously, we don't, you're editing a movie. So in real life, I'm in the room with these people.
And they're deadly serious.
For like hours. They're very serious. What they're saying is horrific.
Right.
And so it's really unpleasant to be in the room. And so there's actually not a lot of temptation to laugh. What I have to hold myself back from doing, making this movie, and even our first movie, What is a Woman, same thing. What I actually had to contain was the urge to argue with them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. And to say,
what about this?
Yeah. Like, you guys are full of it. Let me turn, because my day job is podcast. So in the podcast, you turn to the camera and you say, well, here's my opinion about it. So that was the real urge, was to do that kind of moment.
I mean, that's gotta be tough.
Right.
I want to listen. There is a lot more about that process that I want to talk to you about. We're going to get to all of that and more about Am I Racist right after this.
Cyber attacks are on the rise, with corporate megastores falling victim to data breaches that expose your private information. Now these same megastores are lobbying D.C. politicians to pass the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill will leave you even more vulnerable to credit card cyber attacks while Walmart and Target pocket billions in additional profit. Don't let them get away with it. Tell Congress to guard your card because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
All right, we're back here with Matt Walsh. I want to play a bit of a teaser, a little bit of a teaser of this new movie that you've got coming out that people are raving about. Let's go to the next clip 4, please, Spaghetti.
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
White.
Entitlement.
White.
Centering. White. Silence.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gonna say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. And what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
Nice to meet you.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
Oh my God. So wait, first of all, the trailer's fantastic. You guys edited that perfectly. But like back to the point that Michael was. I mean, look,
how did you put yourself through this? Like, why did you do this to yourself?
You became the guy who had like literally straight faces, the craziest aspects of American society, and you just like tell their tale.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest part is convincing people to do things that I know you shouldn't do. So, for example, there was one moment there we saw we were in D.C. Where we are now. We were handing out we were getting signatures on a petition to change the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument, and also we're going to raise the monument by 30% and paint it black. You know, because why not?
Oh my God!
Not for any particular reason. Not for any particular. Get your minds out of the gutters, guys.
I have no idea. Okay.
Anyway,
right.
so we're.
Oh, you got to see this movie. You got to see the movie.
But here's the thing it's so ridiculous that I, honest to God, thought that when we went to do, we flew out here just to do this dumb thing. And I'm like, this is a total waste of time. No one's going to sign. Like, maybe they'll sign if I said we want to just take George Washington's name off the monument.
Yeah, but you're like 30%, and that's this.
But yeah, when you said we're going to change it to the George Floyd Monument,
right?
I thought that's too absurd. No one's going to sign it, and we actually had trouble finding people who wouldn't sign it. Like, almost everyone signed it, and so we were in the opposite position we thought we'd be in, where we had to keep going for longer because like we need some footage of somebody not signing it. And then we found this guy. He appears in the movie. He's this like Vietnam War vet guy with the hat, and we saw him. We're like, he's not going to sign this thing.
Yeah, he's like,
and thank God he did. He told me to F off, and it was great. I've never been happier to be cussed at in my life.
You're like, thank God.
Yeah, I want to go give that guy a hug. Like, thank you for telling me to F off. Thank you, sir. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. But usually, you know, in that case, we're kind of stopping normal people on the street with a petition. We're not forcing them to sign it. So if they embarrass themselves, I mean, but most of the movie we're trying to focus on these, these experts, the elites. So this is not.
Yeah, it's not.
We get the comparisons to Borat, and we've used the same comparisons, but really there's a lot of differences, and one of them is that with Sacha Baron Cohen, almost everything he does, and I think he's hilarious, but he's usually focused on embarrassing just like normal people in the heartland.
Yeah, you've sort of inverted that.
Right. So now we're like, well, let's go after. I'm a podcast. I'm a community college dropout. I don't even have college education, and so it's fair game. If I can get in the room with a PhD, whatever, professor, expert, and if you embarrass yourself, then I don't feel bad about that at all because you should be able to handle me. I'm not that smart.
Well, I mean, but it's not only that. I mean, look, what I find so fascinating about what you do, and look, we've been fans for a long time. We've listened to your podcast. We've watched what you've done at the Daily Wire. Smart guy who breaks down topics, has got opinions, and can talk to people where they are, and yet somehow, when you do this, you're not doing the Sacha Baron Cohen routine and trying to make fun of somebody. You earnestly look at them and ask questions that, like, you know, if you just happened upon DEI or everything else, these are like pretty fair opening questions. And that's where the magic happens. Like, how did you get to a point where you could just sort of know that that was going to be a thing?
Well, a lot of it is just, you notice that these people, you don't see them out very often subjecting themselves to
like in the
scrutiny.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, or even, you know, conservative, anyone who's a conservative, almost anyone who's a conservative commentator has at some point done the college talk gauntlet where you give the speeches, and I've done it a million times. You do the Q&As, people come, and you know, and you're doing the Q&A, and it's being live streamed. And you know that you got a bunch of college kids here, and some of them, they want to embarrass you. And so, like, you're just volunteering yourself to just, this person, they got nothing to lose, and they want to embarrass you. Here's a microphone, cameras on, give me your worst. The point is that Robin DiAngelo and those people would never do that in a million years. They are not ever going to put themselves in a position to be scrutinized in a way that they can't control. They're not ever going to put themselves in a position to be asked sincere questions, basic questions about what it is they do and what they believe. And so we've noticed that, everyone's noticed that. And it started with what is a woman? And I had this question, you know, the question, what is a woman? And it really frustrated me that it's like this basic question. None of the people who support this agenda will answer it. So that's where that idea for that documentary came from. It's like, we got to figure out a way to just get this question in front of these damn people.
Yeah.
And we figured out a way to do it. And then once we kind of figure out that process, we're like, well, okay, this is the secret sauce. There are a lot of other people in other areas of the culture who won't answer questions either. And so let's keep it going.
Let's take a look.
It's one of the best things about your style, particularly with this movie. And you mentioned, you know, we're talking about regular people goofing on the elites. And what I noticed, what we were talking about before this, it's been all over Twitter, the elites don't like it.
They don't care for
so
it.
much so that I think we have a graphic on this. All the regular people who've watched the movie love it. It's like 99% rating.
There it is.
The elites won't even talk about it.
You can't even get an elite sort of film reviewer.
Yeah, that's why we're saying we're certified gray on Rotten Tomatoes. With the gray tomato. It's pretty. It's the kind of thing that I think if you're just a normal person, it might sound pretty lame to whine about. That, well, I can't get the Washington Post to review my theatrical film. Feel sorry for me.
But you're in 1,500 theaters.
Right, but it is. So it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone in the world, but it does show how corrupt the journalist industry is, because these people, they're in the business of reviewing films. That's what they're supposed to do. We have a top 5 box office film, a wide release, and they just refuse to even acknowledge it. And my thing is, this sounds, I'm obviously very biased, but I'm trying to think, like, well, why won't you review it? Because usually you're very excited. If you can dump on some conservative entertainment,
that's great content,
and rip it apart, then you'll do that. That's why we usually see like the 20% critic score and 90%, right? And they won't even do that with us. So I can only think that the reason is that they know that
they're not touching it.
They don't want to acknowledge me. They don't want to highlight the issue. But also, the movie is like, it's pretty good, and it's just, like I said, I think it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
but it kind of speaks to a larger issue in our politics and culture. I feel like, especially like in the age of Donald Trump since 2016, is like, increasingly the media and in our politics, like these elites have defined what the discourse is and what people are supposed to be talking about and caring about and think is popular and consume. And then there's reality for millions of Americans and what they want and what they like. And those two things are very, very divergent now.
Yeah, incompatible.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, as we saw over like the last 3 or 4 years, just terrible dog shit stuff that no one asked for on these streaming services that nobody watched. Right. And then the economy took a hit and went south, and suddenly they just took it all off the platforms.
Like, maybe with some action flicks or what we need.
It's like, turns out like people like stuff and then watch it. You can't just shove it down their throats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is also, I think, what your film reveals, right? Is like, if these are subject matter experts. These are not just like people off the street, but like how shaky is the foundation of the ideology they believe in if just basic questions from a person posing as somebody interested makes it fall apart.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, especially in this movie. We, in What Is Woman, it was kind of I was skeptical, asking questions, not really believing anything I'm told until the end. With this one, we went further to one side of it where I'm asking questions, but I'm actually going to agree with everything they say. Because we thought that could be an interesting approach and a different approach from the first one, so we won't just repeat ourselves. But what if I'll ask a question, whatever you say, I'll buy it. And then there's the follow-up. Like, if that's true, then what about this? Oh, okay, well, cool, that's true. So then what? And
just leads down an incredible rabbit hole.
And so it's like, what we wanted when we started making the movie is we wanted these people to lead me. Take me by the hand here and show me where to go, and I'll follow you. And we're assuming this is going to lead to a really wild, strange place.
And it did.
And it does. And then the audience, so it's like you can see, well, this, if you believe these people and you take them literally and you take them seriously, this is what you end up with. And it's a little bit disturbing.
I mean, it's an incredible production. You guys just have so much talent over there. I love that you've disrupted the industry entirely because, look, I mean, people make conservative films all the time. What they don't do is put them in 1,500 theaters across the country, and they don't compete for box office receipts and things like that. I mean, what you guys have built over there, Daily Wire, you and Jeremy, Ben, and the whole cast and crew, is truly a cultural phenomenon. I mean, there's just no question about it. It's got to be fun to be a part of.
It is, yeah, I appreciate that. It is. I think there's kind of a long way to go because you're sort of starting from scratch. And one thing that Jeremy, the CEO of Daily Wire, talks about a lot is that the right doesn't have institutions, especially in entertainment. Doesn't have institutions the way that the left does. The left they own all the institutions, and we don't have that. So, kind of the ultimate goal is to sort of become that. But you gotta start from scratch and just build it up, which is very hard to do. And then when you have a kind of an entertainment institution on the right, then you also have a way to, because there's a lot of other great, brilliant people on our side who are doing incredible things, but they have nowhere to take it. They don't have anywhere. They can't go to the mainstream entertainment industry. They have no interest in them.
Yeah.
So you get all this talent kind of just like sitting around dying on the vine. And if you can become an institution to kind of bring those people in and become an outlet for them, then that's the ultimate, goal.
So I had one more question for you. You were talking about basically you did yes and on all of this stuff with these people.
Improv technique.
Yeah, it's an improv technique. And you're basically taking it to its logical conclusion. Where do you find yourself at that logical conclusion? Like at the end of this film, after talking to all these people, are you sort of depressed about it? Are you hopeful that like at least this film will change people's minds? Or like, where's your psyche after having gone through all of this?
You're surrounded by it for a
in
period
actuality
of time.
or in the movie?
Actuality.
Well, actuality. As well, you know what? Give us both.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give too many.
Okay.
In the movie, I end up in it's interesting because, like I said, I don't want to give spoilers away, even if the spoilers are all over the place anyway. But the movie really ends with me doing my own DEI seminar that we invite real people. And I have like my program that I walk them through to.
This is like your graduation,
right? So this is how you descent to your whiteness. And I have this.
Here's the senior thesis.
Yeah. So we have a class, and I walk multiple classes. Actually, I did multiple classes in a day, and I walk them through these activities. And the activities get progressively more bizarre and disturbing.
You're like, let's see how far we can take this.
Right. And it gets to there's a place at the very end where we do something that I thought this would be the moment when the class gets up and walks out because it's too far.
Right.
And then we thought narratively that'll be the end because we also need an end to this movie.
Right.
And so we thought, okay, well, we'll take this to a place that they're not going to follow. They'll walk out. And then that will be my moment of like self-realization that, I've taken this too far.
This is like the DEI version of like Fear Factor. Like, let's see if we can get them to eat bugs.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we go there to that really dark place, and what we find in the class is that there are people that follow us.
God.
And so in the movie, then that's like my awakening, and I realize, oh, this is too far. But in real life, also, I walked out of that like that.
That's scary.
It's scary. It's scary because of what it says about how susceptible people are to DEI, but also how susceptible people are to just to being manipulated in general. And especially, it's interesting in that this one thing I'm talking about at the end that we do that involves my disabled uncle Frank in a wheelchair.
I gotta see.
Yeah. So like I said, we had multiple classes where we kind of went through this exercise, and the first time we did it, the class was not that like they reacted a little bit like you should as an older person. But then we tried it a couple more times, and I just got a little more emotional. In the way that I presented this, and that was enough.
And they followed it.
And they followed it. Like when they saw the emotion, they just took that cue and
ready to go.
And they'll go where. So what that tells you is like emotion and guilt, and the threat of being called a racist are really potent for people. These are very potent cocktail. And if it's wielded by, people can wield it and get people to act in all kinds of ways. And we're seeing that now. I mean, that's why these DEI grifters make the money they do. Because
oh, God, it's just unbelievable. Listen, everybody's got to go out and see this movie. It's playing in a bunch of different theaters. If you have to take a little bit of a drive, go do it. Am I a Racist? You've got to see this thing. It's going to be something we're talking about for months and years to come. Matt Walsh, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal? Reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple. Secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
Well, big thanks to Matt Walsh. Sounds like a very compelling movie. Great interview. Really appreciated his time. It leads us to the question of the day here that we do at the Ruthless Variety program. You got to like and subscribe, though, if you like what you hear, if you like what you just heard in that interview. Like and subscribe. It's the only way that your friends can ultimately end up seeing it. And when you do that, you get a chance to comment on some things that we're saying here. So the question of the day, following up on that interview, is what should Matt Walsh and co. do next? They did What is a Woman? They did I Am a Racist. I know y'all have some ideas. Like, where does this dude go next? I want to hear it from all of you. What should they go after next? I mean...
It is the question, and the other thing that I love about it is that the best suggestions will come from our audience, and the Daily Wire is going to sift through them, and will probably choose from one of your suggestions what he does next.
I'm guessing it's the best stuff out there.
I like if I had my choice, it would be something on like the climate death cult.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Because the I Am a Woman and Am I Racist or whatever, like it's in this same sort of niche academic world of these elites who try to control our discourse. And I feel like the don't have children to save the planet fits into that same rubric as What is a Woman and Am I Racist? You know what I mean?
It's a very, very good point. I absolutely love it. Okay, so we're going to get to all of your comments right after. Look, we got some late breaking news here on the Ruthless Variety program. By the time you listen to this, you will have found out that the Fed, led by Chairman Powell, has cut interest rates by a half basis point. Now, look, if you're like me, you suspect politics behind everything at this late stage in the game, particularly Biden administration trying to save its own bacon. But it may not work out that way. And Smugglesworth is our resident expert on all these things, and he did a little education to me anyway about what we were seeing. And then you and I had a chance to sit down and watch the press conference, and boy, oh boy, it turns out you were right.
Yeah, so it's a really big deal. Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed, cut interest rates by 0.5 point. The general expectation was it was going to be a 1/4 point, right? So going double. That expectation is kind of like a signal. So the Federal Reserve has what's called a dual mandate. They have two things they're supposed to take care of. One is try to keep inflation in check. It's currently growing at a 2.2% rate. You shoot for 2%. But remember, folks, that doesn't mean prices have gone back down to where they were. It means they're just growing not as fast as previously, but still growing at 2.2%. So the Fed needs to take care of inflation. The second is the jobs market. So after Powell makes this announcement that they're actually cutting interest rates by 0.5 point, that sent a signal.
It's a pretty dramatic move.
Yeah, it's a huge, it's a very unexpected move. When you had something like 129 out of 137 economists predicted it'd be a 1/4 point. Even the journalists in the room turned this press conference into a firing squad. Was like, so that means the job market's bad, right? That means the job market's bad. Like, as you and I were watching this press conference, there were 10 journos in a row who basically were like, come on, that means the job market's bad. Things aren't going great.
All I could think of was like, if you had a political journalism press corps that operated anything like the financial press corps, boy, would we have a different thing.
It is incredible.
Because it's an attempt at a dramatic correction. So naturally the question is, what's the wrong? Dramatic thing happening that you're trying to correct?
Yeah, what do we not know about?
Right.
And there were a lot of, interesting tidbits that became clear as he was answering these questions. I think we have a video clip of to me, the most compelling.
This was unbelievable. If we can play that clip, Spaghettis.
On the job creation, it depends on the inflows, right? So if you're having millions of people come into the labor force, and you're creating 100,000 jobs, you're going to see unemployment go up. So it really depends on what's the trend underlying the volatility of people coming into the country. We understand there's been quite an influx across the borders, and that has actually been one of the things that's allowed unemployment rate to rise. And the other thing is just the slower hiring rate, which is something we also watch carefully. So.
Well, I mean, you and I looked at each other. We're like, whoa.
He just said it.
He said it out loud.
Yeah.
The open border and the influx, as he put it, of people coming across our border has allowed our unemployment rate to rise.
And it got even worse because first he said what we all have been saying and been attacked by Democrats for saying that this influx across the border has caused unemployment to go up. And he said, plus you're not having as many jobs being created. So you've got a cooling economy and now concerns about the labor market. This is not what Americans would want to hear is the current state of the country. And this is certainly not what Democrats want Americans to hear right now. If there was any hope that, like, okay, this could be politically motivated, hell, maybe they were like, it would help us if you have a bigger rate cut. It had the exact opposite effect.
It had the exact
everyone is worried.
You'd rather not have the rate cut. If you're Democrats, you'd rather not have the rate cut and not have that audio and video out there of the chairman of the Fed blaming your open borders policy for rising unemployment that's impacting American citizens.
Yeah, with the press corps that's all saying, what's wrong with the labor market now that you've done this? What do you think? I'm going to answer it for you. It's your open borders, folks. And meanwhile, the border czar is on the ticket.
Could you imagine like her team, like her campaign team being like, yes.
Yeah, let's go rev up this economy.
All right, we cut those rates. This is going to be great. And then they're like tuning into the press conference and they're like, oh no.
Because they don't know shit from shit.
Oh no.
I mean, they don't know.
He's blaming us.
So I mean, that's an extremely concerning thing, and we're lucky that he was willing to say straight up, "Here's a problem."
Yeah.
Because he made it clear, not in words, that the labor market is in trouble, and every journalist in the room picked up on that. Mm-hmm. And then when he says straight up, unemployment's going up because of this surge across the border.
I mean,
that's
it
the election
answers
right
the
there.
question.
That's the whole question in front of Americans. Are you concerned about the economy? Are you concerned about immigration? The person who's responsible for things going bad is on the ticket for the Dems.
And let me just say, look, there's a 45% of the American public. It's pretty damn gullible in buying stuff. They're just like, oh, this is good news, this is bad news. My talking points are here, and I'm going to do that. Markets, not so much.
Yeah.
Markets, they're operating off of anticipation, off of, real data, all these things. But you put that press conference together with a half-point cut, and you're like, usually when you cut beyond what's expected, like the markets roar. Not roaring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not roaring. It's like an even Steven.
That was the first sign, is when you don't see markets rip, stocks go up following a rate cut, people are concerned.
That's bad.
Something's bad.
That's bad. So all of this is to contextualize the economic news now some 40 days before an election, which typically is a pretty dicey time to make major moves like this. May have backfired a touch.
Yeah.
May have backfired.
And maybe not all the journo buddies are so bad.
Oh. So that's the last thing I'll add, is the reason you don't see it as bad in finance as you do in politics is because if you're a journalist and you get something wrong in finance, someone put their money on the line, and that means you're not reliable. In politics, they're all just messengers for the Dems. No money's on the line.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Well, ultimately, your money's on the line, which is why you should listen to the Ruthless Variety Program, like and subscribe. And you will have an opportunity to do the following, which is answer the question from last Thursday's episode, which was, will the Democrats and their media allies be successful in burying an assassination attempt? We talked in some detail about what it is that they had been up to. If you look at the news today, they've done their level best. They've really done their level best. But your comments are, as always, very, very instructive. And to do that, we start with a voice.
So the first one comes from B. Foster. And B. Foster writes, the Dems and media allies will be successful in burying the latest assassination attempt because the guy didn't actually take a shot. They will dismiss it as, quote, security incident or some other innocuous-sounding euphemism, and focus all their energy on something else like cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio.
Said B. Foster.
They are currently doing that. So.
That is it precisely, even of the day, on the day the incident took place. It was the Lester Holt hard pivot. This comes amongst rising rhetoric.
J.D. Vance.
In Springfield town, we're going to report on bomb threats that have been caused that weren't.
Yeah.
As the governor.
They were hoaxes from overseas, as the governor of Ohio confirmed.
Yeah. But leading the nightly news on NBC, nevertheless. What else do we got, Dunks?
This is from Brian Norwood. Brian writes, quite honestly, I would not be surprised if the second assassination attempt will be buried by the time your Thursday program airs. At most, you will see snippets of more upcoming hearings, but the Praetorian Guard that is the corporate media knows what they must do for the DNC.
Very, very well said, Brian. I think looks like you're right.
Sadly, yeah.
Looks like you're right. Smuggles?
This is from Charlotte McHell. She writes, will the media be successful at burying the second assassination story? They already have been. From nothing to see here, since shots were not actually fired at President Trump, to it's Trump's fault because he hasn't toned down his rhetoric. The media is shoveling the crap that they think is most helpful to the Harris campaign, and unfortunately, it is working. My neighbors, who are not at all politically involved, have spewed the crap back at me, and they believe it. It is only because of the work of podcasts like Ruthless that some of the left-wing spin gets taken out of what should be real news stories.
Charlotte, you're the best. Thank you for listening. Remember, to everybody else, like and subscribe, and you too can get on the program with your comments on the questions of the day. We're going to be right back with King of the Hill, which is going to be a battle. I'm really looking forward to this. Right after this.
Today's episode is sponsored by Lear Capital. And on the heels of all the economic news, I couldn't pick a better time.
Yeah, we just did this whole segment on the economy and on the Fed, and people are very concerned about what they're seeing out there. There's a high distrust in government. The Fed is printing so much money. Inflation is through the roof, and people are naturally concerned about their investments.
Listen to this. Government debt is growing at a rate of $1 trillion every 100 days. Since 2020, every dollar in your wallet has lost 24% of its purchasing power. And in just the last 18 months, the cost of groceries and basic necessities for a family of 4 has gone up an average of $11,000 a year. These are outrageous numbers. That's why we recommend you call our friends at Lear Capital. They'll show you how easy it is to move some of your dollars that are losing value into gold and silver that holds value. Now's the time to take action. Call Lear today at 800-707-4575 or go to LearRuthless.com. Get your free gold and silver wealth protection guides. There's no obligation, just free information on protecting your hard-earned dollars with gold and silver. You have the choice to take possession of your metals, store it, or you can roll over an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA and get the same tax advantages. Lear has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, $3 billion in trusted transactions, and is the only company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee.
Okay, so it's an epic showdown here.
Yeah.
I believe I'm in the...
bailiff role.
Yeah, law enforcement, I like to call it.
Yeah.
Court enforcement.
And I'm the judge, fairest judge this game has ever seen.
And Smug, you have our defending champion.
The reigning champion, comfortably Smug.
With Sarah Longwell.
And I am the challenger, and I'm bringing Tom Nichols.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay, it's been a while since he's been on the program. What has he been up to?
A lot.
He's been
horrible. A lot.
I mean, this is going to be tough because I know for the past week he's been one of the worst people.
He's been
ripping.
Just a horrible person.
He's a real Renaissance man. Takes all over the map.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, we just go ringside.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting from his own Twitter account for a chance to reclaim his crown, Radio Free Tom Nichols. And now, in the blue corner, fighting from somewhere in Bill Crystal's attic, Sarah Unwell Longwell.
That's excellent.
Believe it or not, that's a cleaned up version of that.
That's great.
Okay, as always, the champion goes first.
I'm just going to go straight with a banger here. Sarah Longwell, Exhibit 6, please.
Yeah, okay. Exhibit 6 is up.
Sarah writes, has either Trump or J.D. Vance called for people to leave Springfield alone? Or are 33 bomb threats resulting from their lie not enough? Or are they exempt from calls to tone down the rhetoric? First off, as we just said, the governor of Ohio has made clear that these threats were hoaxes coming from overseas. What makes that tweet even better is it came out after his announcement.
Oh, no way.
So she's like, the hell with that. You can't make me stop lying.
Oh,
that is a key data point.
Oh, that is a key data point after the information had been relayed.
She's like, no, I will keep lying.
No, yeah, iron this one in.
I believe the left calls that disinformation.
They used to.
I believe they do. Okay.
Challenger. Spaghetti, can I get exhibit number 5, please? Well, I think what you did, Smug, was interesting. The left is trying to refocus the attention on Springfield, as a lot of our comments said in today's episode. The other thing they're doing is trying to undermine this whole Trump was assassinated, or the attempted assassination. This is an interesting take, I think, here from Tom. Tom writes, in 1975, 2 people tried to kill Gerald Ford in less than 3 weeks. Amazingly, Ford didn't try to rile up the country, inflame America's anger, or try to fundraise off it. But that's back when we expected more of our national leaders.
That's okay. I mean, he had better tweets.
So it's actually Donald Trump's fault that he was shot at again.
And it kind of does 2 things, too, because it's also the Ford thing came out. People, journos on Twitter were talking about it because Trump did an interview where he said only truly consequential presidents are attempted to be killed, and so then people started talking about the Jerry Ford incidents, and so he's got a multiple thing.
Well, and it does what everything does in this never Trump conservative echo chamber, where they're trying to diminish Donald Trump as president because he He's uncouth. He doesn't pass muster with their, Chablis swirling, cigar-smoking, smoke-filled rooms. He's beneath them, unlike, Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford, who, when he was the Republican president, was famously mocked by the media on an almost daily basis.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's an outrageous take, but it does not surpass what Sarah Unwell Longwell has done here by overlooking the international involvement in the 33 bomb threats. And for that reason, she wins round 1.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
Champion takes round 1. We're moving to round 2 where the challenger will lead.
Well, this is where Tom Nichols really, I think, hits his stride, and that is the range. Many of our contestants can often be, this is a criticism of them, one-noted.
Sure.
One-noted. They only have one gear, one speed. Tom has many speeds.
Would we like to have an exhibit?
Spaghetti? Well, I'm just providing a little pageantry, sir. Bailiff? Your job is to enforce the court, not speak over
I'm
it.
going to start enforcing the shit out of this court here in a minute.
Exhibit 1, Spaghetts. Tom Nichols with a great cell phone. He writes, he's quote tweeting an account that's talking about, an insult you'd never forget. Tom Nichols. Me cleaning my yard. We need a new leaf blower. My first wife. Why don't you just give one of your lectures?
That's a good insult.
That should be in like the journos posting L's.
Yeah, I want to shake her hand.
Oh my gosh, was she ever right?
That's brutal.
What I also like about it is it works on a couple of levels. Like, number one, like, why don't you go out and like earn some money and you can buy the leaf blower? Or it could also be like, you're full of hot air like a leaf blower.
Yeah. It's a double.
It's a really good insult.
All right, champion, what do we have for him here in round 2?
Could I get Exhibit 7, please?
Exhibit 7 is being worked upon, and here it is.
Sarah Longwell with the tweet saying, why are we talking about Laura Loomer when J.D. Vance is right there?
Oh, my God.
And I think there's a good reason why. As anyone who's been watching any coverage of J.D. over the past week, when he shows up in front of a reporter, he basically goes buzzsaw on them. He's already made an entire circuit of the Sunday morning shows of, it's basically a highlight reel. Like, if you follow the Trump War Room account on Twitter, JD is on fire. And I personally can't wait to see him at the VP debate. I think that also shows not just after she pushes that overseas bomb hoax. In all ways, Longwell is a useful idiot.
Yeah.
So here's my thought on this one. Okay, she's obviously trying to bring J.D. Vance down with that tweet. However, it doesn't have quite the history and variety that the leaf blower insult provides, and we are the variety program. So for that reason, Tom Nichols wins round 2.
I want to just exercise my own self-restraint now that he has rendered a verdict by saying I think the other data point is that Loomer got into a great deal of trouble over the last couple of weeks for what was a overtly racist take on Indians, your people.
Well, if I'm being completely honest about that round in general, I had to throw out the weakest take I had because you didn't even use it, but when he said my first wife.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I did,
This is the most brutal take I've seen in a very long time. So I was like, I am tossing this one out.
I would have ironed the Devo.
I'm saving the next one. I'm not throwing that out.
You are ruthless.
Okay, all right. Round 3 starts with the champion and Sarah Longwell, Smug.
This is exhibit number 8, please. Sarah Longwell writes, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are deeply irresponsible, mendacious people who are already doing real harm to communities with their insane BS. They should be nowhere near the White House. So this, to me, is the crux of the issue that we're seeing in Springfield, Ohio, and across the country. That the problem is you guys are noticing when you get a town of 60,000 people and you dump 20,000 illegal immigrants on top of them. That's the problem. The problem is not, why are you bringing it up? Why doesn't everyone just shut up? The arguments that the left have been making to say that illegal immigration is actually good is just completely disgusting.
You have the chairman of the Federal Reserve just say on national television that
why
the
we're
influx at the border is causing unemployment to go up.
Can I just, as a bailiff, put that tweet up one more time? Just as a point of order, is that in fact a quote tweet of herself?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Okay.
That's another sign of a terrible person.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood what was happening.
Valid point.
I was going to point that out, and also
Because
in
you're a
round
fair practitioner of the game?
Well, that, and I'm going to one-up it with another misuse of the internet.
Okay, all right. Please, Challenger.
I'm a stubborn man. I don't like to lose. I liked my tweet in round 1. And so my tweet in this final round 3 is the same concept, but the presentation is much different, and I've saved the best presentation for last. Spaghetti exhibit number 4, please. So what I didn't tell you in round 1 is the original tweet where he's basically blaming Donald Trump for getting shot at, his own assassination attempt, was actually from an Atlantic newsletter that Radio Free Tom Nichols wrote. Here he is. I'll just read it. Tom Nichols writes, quote, Trump is blaming 2 possible attempts to kill him on pretty much anyone who isn't an open partisan on his side. That includes Biden, Harris, me, and millions of other Americans. Then he tags himself.
Tags himself?
Writes in the Atlantic Daily.
No. I don't believe we've ever seen that.
He tagged himself in a tweet about something he wrote.
And
I don't
he
think
quoted
I've seen that.
himself. This is from his own
Yes,
Twitter feed.
Yes.
He has written his own quote, of which he attributes by retagging himself and writes in the Atlantic.
In case it wasn't clear, he wrote it.
Could have just typed it,
Oh my goodness.
but had to do the.
Could have
right.
just said, hey, I wrote something for the Atlantic about Trump blaming other people for his assassination attempt. Couldn't do that. That would be too humble.
He writes.
So
that's amazing.
I thought on that Sarah Longwell tweet that she was the winner here because there is no Democrat more partisan than a former Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Her quote, and I'm going to read this, doing real harm to communities. It's just lib pablum.
Mm-hmm.
And she has adopted it for her own, and she is pushing it out there on Twitter.
It's like that quote, there's no zealot like a convert.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
However, the Radio Free Tom version of like the Michael Scott Wayne Gretzky quote, where but it's not it's just Radio Free Tom, Radio Free Tom. You can't beat that. So for that reason, Radio Free Tom.
A rarely seen misuse, if ever seen.
I don't think
here.
I've seen that before.
No,
Going
that's a
third
new-
person.
that's a new
Isn't
one.
that like a sign of a stroke or something?
I mean, it is an advantage of being the challenger, being able to go last in the last round.
Yes.
You know?
It's almost like he went third person.
Yeah.
It's
like a meta.
Very meta.
Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Well, great King of the Hill battle. We have a new champion. Thank you to Radio Free Tom Nichols for his.
Thank you at Radio Free Tom.
How about some variety, fellas? What do you think?
Yes.
So you know how they have it. We've talked to DeSantis about this.
Yes.
And one of the couple of times that we've talked to him, we spoke about how they have this Python contest.
Yeah. Basically a bounty.
Because like so many years ago, somebody, the kind of people who have snakes in their house as pets, just like dumped a couple into the Everglades.
Yeah, invasive species.
And the next thing, not native to the area. Next thing you know, they got a hell of a python problem. So this year, AP, the Associated Press, covers what is a contest that the governor puts together to award people a grand prize for how many of these things they can pull out of the Everglades. And it's official. The Florida Python Challenge this year has a winner. The $10,000 grand prize went to Ronald Kiger, who removed 20 Burmese pythons from the Florida Everglades during a 10-day hunt.
I mean, those are numbers.
Which was meant to bring awareness to the threat that these pythons pose to the ecosystem. Last year, he was the runner-up to the grand prize winner. Representatives from Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission announced that his win Tuesday morning in Duck Key. I cannot...
Paradise.
Yeah, Duck Key is great fishing, by the way, down in Duck Key. But this is like a stunning thing to me, in that they have more than 800 people from 33 states in Canada participate in this thing. And the hunters removed a total of 195 Burmese pythons. This is not a small snake.
God bless America.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It is so smart that DeSantis does this. This is creative governing at its finest.
Totally.
And to make a contest out of it that actually helps people, I don't think it should stop with the AP writing up the result. I think ESPN should go down there and cover this contest.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do fishing competitions, and I love those. I love seeing those on TV. Like, a lot of times they're on the weekends early on in the morning.
Yep.
If they aired something like this, I would definitely watch.
I'd watch it.
In fact, this is just for you, viewer and listener. If you do go on Instagram, and while you're there, like our page and follow our stuff we put up on Instagram. But one of my favorite follows on Instagram is this guy, Garrett Galvin. His tag is Fishin' Garrett. And the reason why I bring it up is he almost exclusively, all of his content is this. Him in night vision, in like Everglades and in swamps, picking up animals. And he's got this like famous catchphrase. He just goes, yoink. like he'll be like, oh wow, look, it's a spider, yoink. and he calls alligators swamp puppies, and he's always fucking with the alligators, dude. Like, the guy has like no fear. It's like he's like the Chuck Norris of the Everglades. I swear, you find that account and watch his stuff, you're gonna be enthralled.
I can't believe that. That's a good follow.
Yeah, no, seriously, follow him.
This whole thing with DeSantis runs in contrast to a whole lot of communities that I'm sure you all live in. I live in a suburban Northern Virginia community where it turns out, like over the last week, we've seen these just sickly fox.
Mm-hmm. A fox?
Yeah, the kind when you see during the day and you're like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Is it
that
bad
thing.
news fox?
Bad news fox. And like these things have no hair.
Yeah. Looks like it has hydrophobia, like Old Yeller right before the end.
Yeah, just like Old Yeller right before the end.
Yeah.
And they're just crawling around. And so, what do? You call the county about this kind of thing because they don't allow us to shoot the damn thing.
You call Duncan, bro.
No, but they don't allow it. I mean, he would go to jail where I live if he came out and shot. I mean, where I grew up, this is maybe a 10-minute problem. You take care
I
of
would
it.
gladly go to jail, and I would call upon my fellow Americans to do the oldest and most patriotic thing, and that is jury nullification. And they would set me free.
Yeah, but they try you here, which would be the problem, right? So,
right. The problem is that libs think that these animals all die surrounded by their loved ones with a copay and a priest.
Right.
It's really better off bleeding out somewhere along a glebe road.
No, but here, let me tell you the story about how this went down. You call animal control, and they're like, well, how sickly are they? Like, I don't know. Here's pictures of them just standing like 20 feet from us. 3 of these damn things.
Yeah.
They do
just
nothing.
Like hanging out. And they're like, oh, well, if they're sick enough where they can't run, then, we'll come get them. You're like, would you mind giving it a shot? Like, I don't know. I'm not going to run up and get bit by one of these damn things.
Right.
So apparently somebody comes out and does something. They're like, no, they're not ready. Can't do anything about it. Meanwhile, they live in like one of my neighbor's backyards. Like these things are just everywhere, right? And so those people call. They're like, we got to get these things out of here. What can you do?
It's
They're like,
dangerous.
nothing we can do.
They won't
Are
do
you for real?
anything.
They don't let you shoot them.
Yeah.
And then they won't do anything about it.
Yeah, so I learned this. Remember when the raccoons invaded my attic? I learned this myself firsthand.
And you had to hire a contractor.
I had to hire I hired a service to catch him. He failed. The service failed. And so I took it into my own hands, and I went to Home Depot and I bought traps, and I got the most succulent tuna steak, grilled it up myself, salt and pepper, put it out there in 2 additional cages. They put one on the roof, which was smart because they put it at the entry point.
Sure.
I put additional ones at various points of egress and entry, and I caught 2.
Oh.
And I called the city, being
come
like,
get the damn
I
thing.
got them.
Yeah.
Will you pick them up? And they were like, are they sick? And so your experience is the same as mine. Like, unless they're like foaming at the mouth, they won't even take them from you. So it's like they're asking you to like throw them in a trash can full of water and drown the things.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like you have no recourse.
Is that what you did to them?
No, because I also had hired the service. The service will take them from you, but the county won't do anything.
But you then don't get the satisfaction of revenge.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'll tell you a story I had of my own. So I was talking to my gardener, and I was like, "What the fuck? Or what's with these like holes or whatever that's going on here?" It's like, "Oh, it's a mole. Sometimes they hang out." I was like, "The moles? Not my yard. They don't hang out. Like, are you for real? What are we gonna do about this?" And he was like, "Well, we'll see. They'll go." Oh, I was like, "Here's what I'll do." And I don't know if this is legal or not. So if it's not legal, I'm making this up.
Yeah, this is all parody. We're laughing.
Yeah.
I said, "I have a solution. I'll give you $50 for every mole head you bring me." $50.
Did he come up with
There's
some
no
more?
moles in my yard. None. And I know for a fact the job was done. It's not like...
Much like DeSantis, when you put a bounty on things, you get results.
That's why this works. I saw this and I was like, that's the right approach.
You know,
That's it.
And maybe what your neighbor with the fox problem needs is like 15 British redcoats on horseback and 37 dogs. Just bring them in with the horn.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, my grandfather used to take care of the mole thing or the gopher thing.
You got it.
Where you would find their 2 holes, and he would put a garden hose in one of the holes, and then he'd park his riding lawnmower over the second hole and put a rock on the seat.
Is genius.
And then he'd sit there and he'd wait for 20 minutes, and then pretty soon you hear.
That's dark.
That's farmer's justice is what it is.
That's what it is.
Genius. Farmer's justice.
That is genius.
So anyway, that's about the pythons. We a hell of a show and a hell of a week, fellas. It's only going to get hotter. We've got some fun, perhaps crazy announcements coming up that you all will undoubtedly be interested in. So like and subscribe, follow along, either if you're a listener on wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube, like and subscribe that page. And with that, Smug, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to Matt Walsh. Thank you so much to listeners. Remember, just like Holmes said, subscribe on YouTube if you have not yet, and leave us a comment. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.